Welcome back to my channel. Today, one in the Break the Blank Page series, What Comes Next? This is the last of the 20 pages. So this one I started by spraying through this Magnolia Blossom stencil. And it's an analogous color scheme. The colors are next to each other on the color wheel. And they're muted, which makes me think vintage. Now I love this page, but it's not inspiring the next step. So when that happens, after you break a page, you just simply need to do something until the page starts telling you what you need to do or what it wants you to do. So I'm just going to add some pattern to the page by stamping. I'm using the Stamperia stamp set. I'm not sure what the name of it is. I got it from Ninny's Napkins. There is one that's similar to this, but I'm going to put all kind of music themed stamps in the background. But again, this is just interest in the background. So I was going to put this on the block, but then I figured I just want is it a treble clef? And I'm stamping this. This is darker. And instantly I'm starting to really like the page and seeing where this can go. I have my muted color schemes. I have the theme of magnolias, which I do end up sticking with. And now I've added these gray tones on here with the stamping that I've put on. So this is another one, when words fail, music speaks. And I'm stamping that on, not as something that I want to be able to even necessarily read, but it's just little bits of interest that make your eye go around the page. I love the muted violet, the muted burgundy with the gray tones, with the white as well. Now that I have pattern, I want to add some texture and pattern. So I'm using this linked tiles and modeling paste, both from the Crafters Workshop. I'll put a link in the Ninny's Napkins affiliate links down below, as well as Amazon and TCW. I'm applying the modeling paste with a key card, which is my preferred way of doing it, and I'm putting it on 3 places. I'm not looking to get perfect stenciling because I don't care. This page with the muted colors is just reminding me of vintage, rough and kind of worn. This link tile stencil is one of my favorites. I have used it so much. So if you're looking for some basic stencils, this definitely is one of them. You won't be disappointed. Now I'm going with the gray tone, and I'm doing something that I don't normally do. At the end, I will use my prompt and process cards to go over the steps. I'm taking black acrylic paint here, mixing it with water, and I'm going to do drippage. I'm going to put it in the areas where the modeling paste is. Spray water on it and have it go in all the nooks and crannies of the modeling paste. Now this technique is very unpredictable. You kind of have to go with the flow, and you do have to give up control a little bit. I haven't done much of it because I like being in control. So I'm putting it on, have a baby wipe, have a paper towel to dab up anything you don't like, dry it in between, come back, add more, take out. It's a bit of a dance. but I do like the effect of it. So it's worth the time to try it and try it and try it till you get it to work for you. I did make sure that my modeling paste was completely dry before I added water to it, because otherwise then it gets too soft and it starts to deteriorate. Loving the gray tones with the muted violet and burgundy behind and the stamping. I'm liking how all the things that I've added are working together. A while back, I asked people if they liked the more real-time videos as opposed to the super sped up ones. And enough people commented that um, I will be trying to do more videos without speeding it up as much. This one is sped up about 1.5 times the normal speed. So again, any feedback you give me, I can incorporate into the videos that I upload. With the addition of the black here, I want areas that are lighter, softer gray, and I want some that are darker, more black. So that Magnolia Blossom stencil that I started with in the background, it's still there. You can still see the magnolias, the flowers. So using a focal image stencil in the background is usable. It's doable. Now I'm taking that black on the makeup sponge and edging my page, framing it. Because I broke the page with the violet, the sprays that I did, the only color I'm adding here is black until I get to the focal point. Now I'm splattering with black. I'm liking the black and I want some splatters. And instantly it pushes things back even further. Remember, it's all about those layers. And every time you add something, you're pushing back something. So a quick cleanup, and I'm letting it dry, and I'm looking for a focal image. And I'm flipping through printables that I have. Now this one came from a free coloring page. And it's in Magnolia. This was in my stash, and it's perfect because I have the magnolias in the background. I went through my plastic envelope, my stash of from my Through the Garden Gate sentiment pack, and I picked out a couple sentiments and I'm additioning them on the page. I like this one. To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. My magnolia in my garden is now, the buds are out. It's November, but there's that promise of tomorrow, promise of blooms, and I love that. That sentiment didn't work, so I'm grabbing this one and I'm getting rid of a lot of the white around it. Now I could colorize it, I could cut out the white like I'm doing. There's lots of things you can do. And when you buy the sentiment pack, you can change it up, use the same sentiment different times, and do different things with it. I like on this page the black and white because it goes with the background that I've created. I'm additioning a couple different composition ideas. Nope, I like this one better. And once I make sure that my background is completely dry, because I don't want any of that black to smear on top of my magnolia. At this point, I'm thinking I'm going to leave my focal image as white, just white with the black lines. I'm using fluid matte medium to glue everything down. The brush that I'm using is just a cheap brush. It was a set of 3 from Walmart, $3. I don't need, and it's, quite good enough. You don't need to spend a lot of money on brushes. Once it's completely dry, I'm cutting off the excess. And I decided I'm going to add a little bit of color. My plan was to do more of a whitewash, keep it kind of watercolory. The plan changed. I have my Inktense blocks, which are ink, so it's permanent when dry, but they're activated with water. So I'm taking water on the brush and rubbing it on the block and painting it where I want it. Now remember, I have a coat of matte medium on this. That makes it kind of a non-porous surface. So it's not soaking into the raw paper. So it's going to float above it. I'm putting on, taking off. I don't want this, at this point, I'm thinking I don't want it to be opaque. I don't want it to block off what goes behind. I want some darker areas, some lighter areas. I take off what I don't want. I put more back in. I'm adding some shading or shadowing on the leaves near the flower. Then I continue to paint. And again, I'm hoping to get that watercolory look. Going through my swatch, picking out the colors that for the Magnolia that are in the background, looking for the closest match. And I start colorizing it and taking away. I just want in my mind right at this point, I do change. I want this to be just the very slightest bit between that purple and burgundy. Dabbing off some excess, adding some darker areas. I'm basically figuring it out as I go. Then I decide I'm going to add some gesso to this. And then I end up putting gesso on all the petals of the Magnolia. This pushes back and mutes the coloring, makes it more white. It's just a tint off white in the end. And it gives that painterly effect. Now, if you haven't overpainted napkins or printables or photos, give it a try. It's a lot of fun using gesso and paint. You can see the texture that's been added to the magnolia flower that isn't there. Now I'm taking my finger and dabbing it in the white gesso and rubbing it over the textured areas. I want to lighten it up a little bit and make that texture pop. And there's a close-up of that process. And just add little bits at a time, little by little. And I love how that really made that modeling paste texture really pop out. I'm adding more. I'm wiping back if I want to. And then giving it a dry. Adding more white gesso. Which is basically putting some highlights in. And I like how the whiter Magnolia looks and how it goes with the white that's either in the background or around the sentiment. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe and be sure to click the bell and select the option to be notified of upcoming videos. That way you don't miss any. Typically, I make 3 videos in a week, every second day. If you are a subscriber, you may want to check what your setting is because periodically YouTube seems to default to not notifying you. So you may want to check and click off of it, not to be notified, and then reset it. Now I'm adding some shading on the focal image using black paint and my angle brush and my shading technique. The shading really makes a difference. It makes it look more 3D, more realistic. I do add some shading on the Magnolia flower itself, ever so slightly. If you like my videos, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment. That lets YouTube know that this is a good video. I'm just adding a little more shading, putting back some of those lines that were there. If you remember when I had the raw printout from the computer. Like I said, this Magnolia, this was from a free coloring page. Just adding more shading around the page. And as you can see, I turned the page to make this easier. I'm really happy with this. This page was left to the very end because I really didn't know what to do with it. And, I just started and it came together. Using my Posca paint pen to outline it. Because there's texture on there, you got to be careful with the Posca paint pen. One, you want it to be dry, the surface to be dry, and two, go very carefully if there's texture because it'll skip and splatter and maybe make a mess on and that you're not going to want. Now that this is the last page of the 20 pages that I broke, I will be doing a flip through of all the pages where I show you where the page started after the first layer, the breaking of the page, and where it ended up. I'm using the Posca paint pen to just add some sketchy lines back in. Coming up soon, I'll be using the prompt and process cards and reviewing the steps that were used in the making of this art journal page. And there will also be some close-ups. Oh, I made a mess here, so I do come back. I can't get rid of it, so I come back with some white gesso, white it out, and no one's the wiser. A garden is not a place, it's a journey, much like an art journal page. I love the texture, the colors, the pattern, the interest that's on here. This is one that I would like to do as a canvas. So this started with spray through the Magnolia Blossom stencil. I used one stamp set to add in with black archival pink paint or ink to make contrast, and I did lots of stamping. Then I put modeling paste through a stencil, and I added drippage, which added more contrast with black through all the modeling paste. I splattered the whole page with black paint. I used a free printable as the focal image, and I sized it for the page. And then I painted over the focal image to get that painterly effect. I've got watercolor leaves. I shaded, and I added a sentiment to the page from my Through the Garden Gate sentiment pack. I edged the page to finish it off. Thank you so much for joining me. Check out the close-ups. Until next time, go get creative.